coupled with foreign policy tools to advance freedom and counter authoritarianism. This is something that when I was running U.S. economic diplomacy as Under Secretary of State, we in essence invented, and I brought 12 folks from Silicon Valley out to the State Department, and our mission there was to develop and operationalize a global economic security strategy to drive economic growth, maximize national security, and combat authoritarian aggression. And it was one of the greatest experiences I think any of us had. And I'll say something with Mark Krause is one of the guys I brought out there. We built like 10 companies together. And I remember walking back from how about that, you know? And I remember walking back from the State Department with him one night. And he goes, you know, remember all those things like Ariba, where we invented B2B commerce, or DocuSign, we made business easier to use. All those things, if you add them up, it's minuscule compared to our mission here at the State Department, because it really is all about preventing military wars. So anyway.
Whoa. So that's part of the introduction. Actually, I mean, this guy is truly amazing. He was the youngest VP at General Motors. They gave him a scholarship to Purdue, and then he was an industrial engineer at Purdue. Then they gave him a Harvard Business School scholarship. He went through Harvard Business School. He was one of the early guys at Rasna, and then he sold Rasna very young to one of our companies, Parametric Technology, for $500 million. He then built Ariba from the ground as co-founder and CEO and chairman, and they reached $40 billion market cap at one
billion
with a B. And DocuSign, he joined DocuSign with about 50 employees. He built that thing up, took it public. DocuSign, who here has used DocuSign?
Yes, I love you all.
And that's now more than a $10 billion company. I mean, this guy is an extraordinary, before he went in to do public service, extraordinary business guy. But he's also done all these things for the world. He's got this leadership thing that he does. He was the chairman of the board of Purdue. He created he's chairman of Angie's List. Who's used Angie's List? Chairman of Angie's List. Yeah, you should if you haven't. And then he went into government, and there was something that he did that showed an incredible backbone, which is really what got him the Riskmaster Award this year. And that was, he saw that freedom was being taken away from the Chinese by this bad dictator, weak man, horrible, control freak. And he went in and he supported Taiwan. He went in and he said, hey, we're not going to put up with this. And so what was it? I mean, I saw this, and I just decided to pull all my money out of China when he started to take it from me. What was it that you saw in China that made you defeated the Chinese Communist Party's attempt to take over 5G so they could get all your data, and you went after them, and that took a lot of guts. And what was it that you saw? He also, by the way, he spearheaded the TSMC onshoring program, so eventually we're going to have semiconductors here in the US. What was it that you saw in China or from wherever that made you realize that this guy's a bad guy, he's screwing up the lives of 1.4 billion people, and we got to stand up?
Yeah. So this was in the later days of DocuSign. At that time, we were up to about 500 million users. We were in every major country except China. So usually when we go into a new country, we go on a listening trip. So I went on a 2-week listening trip. JD, Carter, Meta, they came, and my chief of staff here. And I've been going to China since 1981. I'm a lover of Chinese history, the culture, the people, certainly the food. But this time it was different because I could see how General Secretary Xi's market competition amped up to a new form of aggression. I saw their drone swarm technology. It was the first time I heard about their one belt, one road. It looked like a military supply chain to me. They were telling me to download 10 cent every 30 minutes. We met with 7 of the 9 top Politburo members, and as I'm flying back on a plane, I said to Meta, all I know is the guys with the best technology win the war, and these guys are up to no good. I wonder what the guys in Washington think about this. So a week later, I went out. I didn't know anybody in Washington except for one guy. I've always ran my companies politically neutral, never participated in politics. I knew VP Pence because I was chairman of the board of trustees at Purdue, and I hired the governor of Indiana, and Pence took his place. So I went out there and to tell him what I saw. And I go in his office, puts his arm around me, says to his chief of staff, yeah, this is Krach. I tried to talk him into his third term of being chairman of the board of trustees, but oh no, he's got to run some of those software company. How's it going, Keith? So, well, sir, we just went public a few months ago, about $9 billion. So after they picked themselves up off the ground, I said, but I'm here to talk to you about China. And I told them what I seen, and he looks at me and goes, have you ever thought about serving your country? And my response was, that's a dream I never knew I had. I'd be honored. He goes, can you move? I can move anywhere in the world. And that was it. And then they said, go State Department, run U.S. economic policy. But, you know, I had also seen, you know, as a kid, and by the way, to be able to have that work experience as a kid, my dad had a 5-person machine shop when I was growing up. And 5-person at good times. It was just me and him when I was young. I was welding at age 12. And so what I could see growing up is China's weapons of mass production gutted the heart of our economic engine. That's small and medium-sized manufacturing business in the Midwest. I also, at Ariba, we had our intellectual property stolen by Alibaba. And I could see as a VP of General Motors, when you build a plant in China, it's, you're not just giving the blueprints, you're teaching the process manufacturing. And you're also training their folks. And so I see this over the years. Now, when I went to the State Department, it was beyond my wildest imagination. And this is nothing against the 1.2 billion Chinese that are not part of the Chinese elite Communist Party. But the Chinese Communist Party has no regard for human life. And we could see when it really got amped up. Their aggression got amped up during the pandemic. And this is an epic struggle between freedom and authoritarianism. And now they've got their the axis of evil. They've hooked up with Russia, they've hooked up with Iran, North Korea, and this is a real dangerous time.
So, what do you think's gonna, I mean, project out? Are we going to war? Are we going to just, is the trade war gonna get worse and worse? Are the Chinese gonna learn that they've got a bad leader, a weak leader, and overthrow him? Is the, you know, so that we can trade with China again? We don't have to do all that onshore. What do you think's gonna happen? Where are we going here?
Well, you know, I think the reality we face in the free world is ever increasing cyber warfare, technological warfare, and the authoritarian regimes are playing the long game, they're playing for keeps, and a game of economic, military, diplomatic, and cultural chess. The crossroads and the main battleground. This time, though, is technology. And they're playing that game with very little respect for human rights, the environment, sovereignty of nations, intellectual property, rule of law. So one of the questions I got asked in my Senate confirmation committee hearing by Senator Carter, he goes, Mr. Krach, what's going to be your strategy to combat China's aggression? And my answer was, I'll harness the 3 biggest areas of U.S. competitive advantage by further strengthening our relationships with our allies and our partners and unifying. The second is leverage the innovation and resources of the private sector. And the third one is to amplify the moral high ground of democratic trust principles. And those are the 3 big advantages that we have. And what was interesting, Tim? In my first 60 bilaterals at the State Department, where it's like with a foreign minister or economic minister or finance minister or prime minister, you're in these one-on-one meetings with these guys, and I got around saying, how's your relationship with China? They go, oh, they're really important trading partner. Then it seemed like every time, like as if somebody's in a room, they look both ways, and they lean and they go, but we don't trust them. Now that rang bells in my head, because I'd always stand up on stage at a big user conference in front of employees at DocuSign and say, we're not in the software business, we're in the trust business. We deal with people's most important documents, and those are the ones that you sign. And trust is the most important word in any language. You do business with people you trust, you buy from people you trust, like Nadia, by the way, on the blue team. You love people you trust. And when you're building a company, when you're building your nonprofit, people have to trust your processes, your product, your people, everything. And by the way, what are these young entrepreneurs doing, these transformational leaders of tomorrow? They're building their trusted relationships right now, and that as an entrepreneur, your most strategic asset are your trusted relationships. And this is something that they don't have. And this is something that we used against them to defeat China's master plan, to own 5G, that's not just smartphones. That's manufacturing processes. That is sanitation systems, utility grids, power systems, autonomous vehicles. And that was an area that it was a real and urgent thing, where we put this thing called the trust doctrine to the test, which is just an articulation of our democratic values.
So you worked under Trump. Have you moved to the Nikki Haley camp yet?
I don't get involved in politics. Here's the thing about our mission. It's the most unified mission on Capitol Hill. And I really do come from the school that politics end at the water's edge. And And I think at the end of the day, nothing scares the shit out of General Secretary Xi more than a United States, except a United States of allies, right? And that is the thing. So we need a little more unification, but we are under a real and urgent threat. Make no mistake about it. This is probably one of the most dangerous times in 50 years.
Yeah. So let's go back to business. You are an extraordinary business person. You have built 3 monster successes. What's your secret?
Knowing you, Tim. No, by the way, you need a lot of money. There's no doubt about it. When you're a CEO, your one job, your most important job is to build a high-performance team. And so how do you do that? Well, Cindy knows, all these guys, we used to work together. And number one thing is you need the best people. The company with the best people wins. The second one is the multiplier is to get them working together as a team, right? Because that creates all this synergy. And in order to get people working together as a team, you need 3 things. You need a noble mission. You need an enemy. If you don't have one, make it up, because that's what stops the water cooler talk. And the number 3 thing is you need a plan, and that's the third thing, is a plan. And all these different companies we've built It had the same structure, what we actually call our playbook. And that's our vision, mission, values, long-term goals, strategy, all boiled down to execution. And you can have the greatest strategy in the world, and if you can't execute, you're gonna fail. And you can have an okay strategy, but if you can out-execute everybody else, you're gonna win every time. So it was that kind of a formula. It was, there's no doubt about the people side. And then in all the business we built a network, right? Because you get tremendous synergistic effects with that. So if you look at, Ariba, now that has 3.7 trillion going through the Ariba network on an annual basis. That's more than Amazon, eBay, and Alibaba combined. You look at the DocuSign Global Trust Network, 1 billion users now, 1 million companies. If you look at what we did to defeat China's master plan, we created the Clean Network Alliance of Democracies, which in less than a year we put together 60 countries, representing 2/3 of the world's global GDP and 200 telcos and a host of industry-leading companies. And why was that important? Well, it's because it provided a security blanket against China's retaliation, intimidation, and retribution, because there's strength in numbers, and there's power and unity and solidarity. And I think, the thing you learn in the schoolyard is, for the bullies, if you confront a bully, they back down. But they really, really back down. You have your friends by your side.
Good. So, how do you've raised Carter and JD. I haven't met your daughter, but I think I did meet your daughter.
Yeah, there's 5 altogether.
But they seem to be natural leaders. Is there something that, other than going through Draper University, Carter, good job.
Yeah, it is.
Being a hero from Draper University. Is there something you did or something you were thinking about in raising your kids to take on leadership positions?
Yeah. I'm going to talk about 2 things. And one is, and I give this advice to parents all the time, is, especially like these young guys, it's like they just found out their wife's pregnant, they're nervous. How can I have a kid if I'm still good? I said, look, number 1, just trust your gut. You don't have to read all those books maybe that your wife might tell you you should read. Don't read them. Just trust your gut. Sorry, ladies. That's funny. I'm going to get in trouble probably for that one. But anyway, but trust your gut. And when you don't, when you go, when your gut's telling you don't really know, give them a hug. Give them a hug. And just love them to death. The third thing is always talk about your failures. Because there's enough pressure on these young guys all the time that you got to take the pressure off. And by the way, I think it's the number 1 thing that enables you to take a risk is when you talk about your failures. So you go around a room, you talk about your failures, it's like, well, we all know that's when you learn the most. And by the way, that's what the Riskmaster is all about, is putting it out there and experiencing failure. That is when you learn the most. So I think that's an important part. The other thing, especially when I think of Carter and JD, I'll tell you, a secret weapon in the business world, in any world, is a sense of humor. And that is, you can take your job serious, but don't take yourself. And I'll never forget my dad. He was like a boxer in the Army and stuff like that. And I remember I'm ready to go off to college. The night before, he goes, Keith, you ever feel like you get trapped in a corner? I go, what do you mean, Dad? Oh, like you're getting pummeled in the ring and you just can't get out. Oh, yeah, I know, Dad. You get that warm feeling, how am I going to get out of it? He goes, yeah, that's it. He goes, there's one way to get out of it. It works every time. Okay, Dad, tell me. And he goes, mock yourself out. Just mock yourself. He didn't know big words like self-deprecation. He goes, it just works every time. Just mock yourself out. It'll get you out of any situation. Because that's funny. And I have a lot of material personally, I know you do too. And it's funny. And by the way, if you stand up in front of your company, 95% of the folks, they know your fears, your failures, and your flaws, or they soon will. So might as well have fun with it. And I remember as we were walking up the stairs that night, my dad put his arm around me. He goes, "Now don't go mocking anybody else out." He goes, "That hurts your feelings. Plus, that's not funny." That's funny.
I like that. You know, I think Cree Edwards didn't read the book, and that's why Jennifer bid $5,000 today. So thank you, Jennifer. That was great. Different sides of the room, too. Okay, so Keith, this thing's all about these young kids who are starting businesses early. If you're starting a business, what's the advice you give to them, or what's the first step they should be taking? What should they be thinking about? Why do it in the first place? All those things. Yeah, I think some of the kids are still here, and if not, we can all tell them.
Well, first of all, I don't think there's anything more fun. And that is taking something from nothing and have it achieve escape velocity. And by the way, that's what's great about BizWorld, because what the entrepreneurship program does is it really teaches them problem solving skills and creativity. And we need a little more of that these days. So I think that's great. The other thing is, if you look at value creation and what drives, they may not, these young folk may not understand GDP of the world, but they understand what standard of living is, and there's nothing that drives the standard of living around the world more than entrepreneurship and value creation, right? That's why out here in Silicon Valley, people make a lot of money, because it starts off with nothing and you build something, right? And it also is put to risk. When you're a startup CEO, it's not, you're a very lucky man, because you can put your chips on 23 red, black, and, you've got all these things spread out. But when you're a CEO and you're starting a company, you put all your chips on one, and your reputation, and your money, and the future. And it's a little scary. So sometimes we end up under the desk in a fetal position, like a baby, maybe once a quarter or something like that. And you just got to drag yourself out. And what drags you out? Well, it's your friends and your family and everything. In my life, it seems like I've been, and I call it jumping in water over your head. I've lived my life at high velocity, new adventures every 5 to 7 years, and it really gets your adrenaline rush, and you have plenty of time to experience failure. And after a while, that adrenaline rush gets so much, it's addicting. I can't imagine my life actually without it. I remember Carter, we were going on, he's 5 years old, we're going on Santa Cruz boardwalk on that roller coaster. He was scared, man. He didn't want to go. And his brother, 2 years older than him, "Come on, Carter, let's go. And finally we talked Carter into going. Now, I was little, so we're going up that, that first hill, and his brother's in the thing right in front of us, and Carter and I are right there, and Steve's looking back at Carter going, "We're gonna die. We're going up that hill." And then go, whoa, he's screaming his hell, and then it comes to a stop, and I look and I go, "Oh God, I'm the worst father ever." And I look over at Carter, and he goes, "Dad, that was scary fun. Let's do it again." And by the way, that's what building a company is. It's scary fun. And after a while, you want to do it.
And do it again.
And do it again. And again and again.
So what's next? Well, here, actually, before what's next, AI is totally rocking the world. I mean, if you've tried ChatGPT, it's interesting. Use ChatGPT 3 and then use 4. 3 tells you the truth. 4 is a little woke. Anyway, what are you doing? Are you doing anything with AI? It's sort of a perfect fit for your old companies.
Yeah. So at the Krach Institute for Tech Diplomacy, we've been chartered to run the congressionally mandated global tech security strategy. So it's And what's unique about this is it's with 15 of our closest technological allies. And it's in all the national security tech sectors. So we have commissioners from different countries. We have in all those different tech sectors. We also have strategy commissioners. And so AI is a really important part of this because this is going to change everything. Probably the one thing that's going to change everything even more is quantum. And then when you combine those two things, it's going to be a whole different world. And if you look at what the Institute was founded on, it was founded simply on the principle that technology must advance freedom. Because it can help our society in many ways, but it can be used by the bad guys in a lot of ways. You can see the surveillance state in China and all kinds of weaponry and those kind of things. So, yeah, AI is really a great thing. But you know, always all the companies that I've built, you know, the robotics area, computer-aided engineering area, in the e-commerce area, and office productivity, it was always that next paradigm shift, and it was always about the productivity. And I remember we were putting in robots in GM plants back in the 80s. Everybody goes, well, it's going to replace all the jobs. No. It makes it more productive so people can do other things. I remember like Ariba. Oh, you're going to replace all the purchasing managers and all that. No, we're going to make it so you don't have to do the drudge work, right? So the thing is, it's moving really fast. That's the challenge, right? But how our children and our grandchildren are going to learn is going to be a lot different.
Okay, so I got one more question. I see the hook.
Oh wait, just give us another answer.
We were thinking we would compete with Fidel Castro, who stood up, locked everybody in the room, and made them listen to him for 13 hours in a row. But
Draper the taskmaster.
But 3 points. You've got an investment business called 3 Points. What are the 3 points?
Well, I thought you were going to say why 3 points, because 2's not enough and 4's too many, of course. 3 points, you know, those 3 points, Tim, is like love. It's whatever you feel in your heart, whatever you want it to be. You know, it's kind of a holy company because, and I think a lot of us have experienced, sometimes people worry, like, what's the next thing? What's the next thing? Don't worry about it.
Oh, is 3 points like that? 3 points?
Well, yes, you miss every shot you don't take, Tim.
Ah, I like it.
Right?
All right, we'll finish with that. Thank you, Keith.
Thank you, everyone.
Give it up for Keith and Tim, and if you guys would stay just for a couple pictures real quick. Charlene and Liz, can you come on up here? Let's just get a couple quick pictures here.
Oh, yeah. Head for the picture.
Yeah. The bottle.